Hey, what is going on, everybody, and welcome to Fantasia. For today, we're going to be jumping into another session of Epic 7 out today. Got another tier list for you guys. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at the RGB selectors that are going to be available in week 2 of the perfume farming event, and with that, we'll be ranking all the RGB units in terms of their PvP and PvE viability. Now, starting off here, we do need to talk about units that cannot be summoned through this event, which include all of these summer units, collaboration units, and limited units as well. Just gonna briefly mouse over all the names, not gonna waste your time reading all of them out to you guys, but keep in mind that these units are not available. We also cannot get Ruiza, Tactical Archetype Koli, Saria, or Aki because they were released too recently, and you can add them though to your own custom Covenant summons to try to get them there. Moving on, we also have our D tier, which is our free list, and this includes the units that you can get for free, right? Just by playing the game, by doing special missions, and by clearing certain pieces of content. So you have your hunt units, right? Sigrid for Wyvern, Sirmia for Golem, and Vivian for Banshee. We have Brig, which is one of the best units in the entire game, available for free in PvE content, that at the very least. Tamarin as well, one of the best support units in PvE content for free, along with Assyria, Mort, who's also a pretty good PvP unit as well, Bomb Model Kana, I think you can get through connections, same with Yuna, and Zeno you can purchase from the shop as well. So all these units here, 10 in total, are free for you guys to acquire. Next up, we have the C tier, which I'm just gonna throw these guys in here. There's no use for me talking about each of them specifically, but they are pretty much just underwhelming in their own right. They're not really seeing play in both PvE or PvE content. Maybe in some niche forms of content they do pop up here and there, but in general they're just outclassed by others. So I like to call this the Waifu and Husbando tier, because if you really like a unit, nothing's stopping you from making them good. And with enough investment, any unit can be sort of viable, right, as a fun little pocket pick that you want to bring along. But let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the tiers here. The S, A, and B don't mean that anything's better than the other. In each individual category, we're going to split them up by PvP and PvP viability, which means that they're going to be very flexible in use for both contents. PvP exclusive is self-explanatory. You can use them in RTA, you can use them in Guild Wars, and you'll see pretty decent results. And the strictly PvE is for units that are pretty decent supporting in pretty much every other aspect of the game, right? So we'll break these down as well. And at the very end of the video, I'm going to show you guys my top 5 recommended picks, which I'm calling the SSS tier category. So this will be a combination of units from these tiers here, and so do be sure to stick around to the end for that. So let's start off here with the PvE category, because I assume a lot of people who are watching the video right now are having difficulties picking a unit because you're either newer or maybe you're a returning player and you kind of don't know what the whole scene is going to be like. Well, the best PvE unit in the entire game right now for support that you don't get for free is Fene. Fene is incredibly strong in terms of healing and supporting, and you use her in pretty much all aspects of content. You can use her in hunts, you can use her in expeditions, you can use her everywhere, including Hall of Trials, Constellation of Nightmares, right? Or Constellation of Nightmares, whatever that is called. All the PvE contents you can use her in. Next up, you also have Rowana, super solid unit, pretty much always recommended whenever I make one of these RGB tier lists. She is really good against counterattack units, extra attack units, and all that stuff. There's a lot of PvE content, like certain hunts and things she's really good at as well. And of course, you can also use her in PvP in the form of Arena. She's used in a lot of Arena teams because so many units nowadays have extra attacks or counter attacks and stuff, and she counters a lot of team comps just by herself. So climbing Arena, she's also really useful in. But I consider Arena more of a PvE content mode, so that is why I'm kind of sticking her in the PvE category here. She's not really used in RTA all that much. Next up is going to be Destina. Kind of just organize these characters by their classes. So Destina is another Soul Weaver, good reviving, good healing, and can help get you through story mode, right? Just be able to revive the team and constantly put up heals. She has combat readiness pushes as well. She's just a really solid overall unit to have along. Arya's also going to be thrown in here for PvE content. She is not as good as she used to be in terms of clearing PvE content, but she's still relatively decent. And if you like her, you can definitely use her, find some places for her. She's also decent at clearing some Abyss stages as well, with some potential solo potential there. If she gets buffed in the future for PvP, then, you know, she'll be bumped up in terms of the tier, up to PvP and PvE viable, but for right now, she's fallen out of the PvP scene for a couple of years now. Next up is Bihu, who actually has really good utility in terms of combat readiness pushing. He has some damage with burns, stripping buffs and stuff, so really solid in PvE in terms of Trial of Constellations. That's right, it's not Constellations of Nightmares, it's Trial of Constellations, that's what it was. Yeah, Bihu's pretty decent there, so pretty good to have on your roster. Next up is Abigail. She gives immortality to the backline unit. She also cleanses them when they take lethal damage, so she's pretty decent in terms of PvE. PvP, not really used as much, but yeah, in PvE content can keep your DPS unit in the back alive, especially when you're fighting certain boss stages and stuff, could be quite useful. So she's going to take a spot here. A decent support unit with defense breaks and stuff too. Next up, we have Fire Cecilia. She's used in some PvE contents, but honestly a lower priority because you do get Brig for free, and Brig is just so useful across so many different pieces of content. Cecilia is a good debuffer, good for putting up immunity for your team if you're into that, and has defense breaks on her skill 1, and then she's pretty just decent at supporting your team, right? Mitigating damage as well. So she is definitely going to fall into the PvE category here for me. And then moving on, we have a couple of other knights here, like Fire Lilius, right? You'd think that she's a PvP unit, but she's kind of fallen out of the scene lately. She's not really used all that much. But for PvE, she has dual attack, she has cleansing, she scales with the highest attack unit on your team. So if you're using free units like Commander Lorena, she works really well with her. And yeah, I think Lilius is just a pretty solid unit for utility there in terms of clearing story and just general PvE. Right. Moving on, then after Lilius, we have some bruisers here. So Shu, we have Charles, and we have Violet. So I'm putting them in the PvE content here. Shu is just decent for having anti-crit buff, supporting the team a little bit. Has some good damage, right? Has extra attack as well that's pretty strong. Charles, really good for buffing the team with attack defense buffs. He has the ability to give himself a counter-attack buff. Super solid in PvE content, honestly. One of the best units for Trial of Constellations as well, and Violet too is also used in Trial of Constellations, but again, that's really like one specific mode here, so Violet not really too versatile. Charles can be used in so much other content as well, in terms of clearing story in expeditions and all these other things, but Violet not so much, so that's why I'm putting him here. He's not really used in PvP or anything, because his evasion is really terrible, and not really reliable. Next up, we have Fenris, who is pretty good in certain expedition contents and stuff, so PvE content, he's pretty good at nuking bosses and things like that, so not too bad to carry along, especially if there's extra attacks, counterattacks, and stuff like that coming out from your opponent. Immortal Wukong as well, I'd say is a pretty good PvE unit. He has good AoE damage, he has good defensive capabilities in his passive, so I'd say he's quite alright. Same with Kayron. He's not really used too much in PvE or PvP, but like I'd say I'd throw him in here because he's not a horrible unit to have, kind of okay. Has immortality, keeps himself alive, can counterattack, do some good damage, put him in the front lines, and you might be okay in a lot of cases in terms of surviving things that you might not necessarily survive normally. And then the last three units here are just going to be general defense breakers that I think are pretty decent for PvE content. Tenebria's Fire, Luluka's Ice, and Bellona is Earth, so they cover all the three bases here. All of their skill 3s have an AoE defense break, which I think is pretty good. Tenebria is a solid damage dealer, same with Bellona. Luluka more of a support unit with defense buffs and barriers for everybody, so yeah. In that case, these three are also here for generally supporting for hunts and expeditions, PvE content, right? So they're going to be there. All right, moving on though, we got the PvP tier. You guys are, if you're watching this channel, you probably watch for a lot of my RTA content for PvP and stuff. So these units are pretty much going to be exclusively used for PvP. You can use them in some sort of PvE contents here and there. They're sort of flexible, but the most flexible units are going to be up here in PvP and PvE. So starting off, we have Ron, right? Ron and Peyra. These are two of like the highest base speed units in the game. Ron is 129. And Peyra has 128 base speed. They're both really, really solid for building if you're playing aggressively in RTA. and they're used as openers. Rana's seeing a lot more play nowadays as well. Litica too is going to be up here. She's not used as much as she was a couple seasons ago, but still very much a PvP geared set here for her kit, and very, very strong as an opener. Can be counterplay to certain units as well, right? Pushing back slower units, defense breaking them, all that good stuff. Then we have units that increase cooldowns for the opponent. So Lua and Knockwall here, both have been seeing like a bit more play. I've seen a couple Knockwalls drafted in RTA just trying to counter things like Notos. But yeah, aside from that, you don't really see them play too much, but they're also really not that good in PvE, so they're more of a PvP-based unit here. Next up, we have Fumir. Fumir is used in super aggressive control team. She has really good fixed damage now, and the ability to have 2 turns of sleep is kind of ridiculous. Sleep is not as good as stun or fear, but sleep is still really good in terms of lowering your opponent's evasion and stuff, so against certain team comps, she's really good. She has a non-attack skill as well, so she can be used against earth units. You don't have to worry about hitting them and all that stuff to land those debuffs. Next up is Elvira. Elvira is like a 3-turn immortality buff that she gives herself. Incredibly good for Arena. Super good as a counter pick in RTA 2 because her passive shuts down all fighting spirit gain. And with units like Fire Charlotte running around and Lone Crescent Bellona running around in RTA, Elvira is a really good way of shutting those units down and pretty much negating their passives entirely. So a really solid unit for PvP. Next up is a Knight here, Yoha. Really good in PvP, mostly because of her reflect damage. She's kind of a selfish kit, so I wouldn't say she's good in PvE as well. There are certain knights that can be good in PvP and PvE, which we'll talk about, but Yoha here, more of a PvP unit. You can use her in Arena as well. I guess that's considered PvE. You can use her in Arena, but in RTA, she's sort of viable sometimes against units like Frieren, who can't help but do AoE damage. Couple that with a Perfumer Bibulus, and you got yourself a self-reflecting damage machine, right? So Yoha's pretty solid here too. Next up is going to be Gar Captain Crow. I feel like he's pretty good in PvP for defense penetration, just nuking a certain unit out of the match. If you're not going up against Empyrean Ilanov, I mean, that's his main weakness. Anything that doesn't have defense penetration resistance can easily fall to him, so he's pretty useful in PvP, although he's not really seeing too much use right now because he is easily controlled. Next up is going to be Hua Young. She's more of a PvP unit than a PvE unit. You probably could get away with using her in PvE, but she does have the ability to kind of one-shot things. Not really as great. It's kind of like in the same boat as Gar Captain Crow because Empyrean Ilanov is around, but in terms of where she ranks here, she is definitely a PvP unit, although a lower priority one. Next up is something like Yufine, who is used in Cleave sometimes. There's better units nowadays like MLTU to run, but Yufine can definitely be used if you're a fan of her in aggressive teams with units like Zio or any other opener that can debuff your opponents. She'll jump up in combat readiness, you can nuke with your skill 3, and I believe it resets its cooldown when you finish somebody off, so you can just keep doing your skill 3s over and over and over until you finish off your opponent. Next up is Zahak. He's actually a really good unit overall to have, and I'm putting him in the PvP category because he is seeing a little bit more use. I did fight a few copies of him, people running him in RTA because Lone Crescent Bellona is now a thing, and evasion is being a little bit more prevalent in the meta. Zahak has a self-buffing increased hit chance, so he actually is pretty decent at dealing with certain evasion units, pretty good at dealing with Setsuka as well. Alright, so moving on, we have some more kind of aggressive units like Kisei, recently got buffed, pairs really well with Ahmed, can be used in Cleaves. We have Teiyu as well, not sure if he's really seeing too much use right now, but used to be used against opener debuffers. You would jump up with Teiyu, he'll cleanse himself, get the rage buff, you'll reset your opponent's units, you'll do quite a bit of damage as well. He is not the best base stats, but his damage scaling is pretty decent, and he can be used. It's just kind of tricky to pull him off. We've used him last season from time to time too. Next up is going to be Robin, used with extra turn units like Rinok, for example. Kind of nice for dealing some good burn damage against your opponents, especially units that are quite squishy, let's say like Spirit Eye Selines and stuff like that. You can get away with using Robin and Rinok against them, and you can usually take them down pretty easily. However, there are better options like Saria now for dealing with evasion units and just general cleaving. She packs a lot of damage, and she has team utility with invincibility and stuff, right? But Saria is currently not available, but Robin is definitely more of a PvP geared unit. Next up is going to be Ida, not really used in Cleave anymore, but she is still used in PvP. You can still use her in general for like Guild Wars and things if you want. Pair her with good openers and things and you can still make her work. She still has good damage, it's just that there are better options nowadays with so many good ML5s to choose from. Sez is actually used in a lot of arena team comps and sometimes in RTA as well to nuke through some really high defense units, and he also has a lot of fixed damage that he does as well when he finishes somebody off. He also has the ability to attack with a nice AoE when opponents fall below a certain amount of HP, so he's a good like cleaner, sweeper, finisher for your aggressive teams. And next up is going to be 3 Soul Weavers. We got Schneel, Elena, and Brigitte. So Schneel is up here because he doesn't really see too much use in PvE. I mean, I guess you can put him in PvE here. You know what? Yeah, you can use him in PvE. He is seeing a little bit of use. People are trying him against Perfumer Bibulus right now, and they are, I mean, he is good against countering DDR, but you can use him to solo things like Banshee, so actually, I'm going to go ahead and put him down here. I think that's probably better, right, for PvE. He's not really used that much in PvP. I'd say he's more of a PvE unit. You can solo Banshee with Schneel, so he's pretty sick in that regard. So we'll make a little adjustment, put him there. Elena is definitely a PvP unit against Cleave units that AoE as their opening move, like Ron. She is pretty decent at cleansing and then pushing herself up, giving invincibility to the team. And Brigitte, with her new EE and her new buffs, she's finally viable and seeing quite a bit of use in higher level RTA. I haven't personally built mine or used her yet, but supposedly she is actually not that bad. Alright guys, next up is the PvP and PvE picks here, and so we're going to start off the bat with Setsuka. The fact that she's available on the Selector is amazing. I'm putting her in the PvP and PvE category, because in PvE she could be useful, get some RNG counters and whatever. She's a pretty self-sustaining unit, right? But in PvP, absolute monster, super good in RTA, super good in Arena, and used in Guild Wars as well, right? So incredibly good unit. Compare with so many units like Emma Bologna, pair with Nurse Yoha. You can run her with so many different team comps that are defensive and tanky. Next up is Genoa, complete opposite of Setsuka, really fragile but super high damage, has immortality to help protect himself, defense penetrates as well, not as useful in RTA right now because Empyrean Ilanov is pretty much always picked, but Genoa in PvE content can also decimate bosses, clear through mobs, right, and get you through a bunch of stages really quickly. So yeah, Genoa is a pretty solid option for more offensive use. Celine is also really good in PvE and PvP. In PvP, used against non-attack skill units to nuke somebody right off the gate. You can also target with her EE the highest attack unit on your opponent's side, so really good for dishing out damage. And in PvE content, useful in certain modes like Abyss and things, and can also be used to, again, target specific mechanics of certain bosses and such to attack them directly, right? Next up we have Politis. Fire Polit has always been good since she got released into the game. A unit that aged really well, and she is good in PvP because she prevents the opponent from pushing up in their combat readiness, cuts that gain by 50%. She has good debuffs. You can run her on Abyssal Crown for some stun capabilities as well. Can sort of strip buffs with her passive ability, and her skill 2 is just pretty good at stripping, and if you have Abyssal Crown, you can apply stun. If you're using skill 3, it's an AoE, you can apply stun with Abyssal Crown as well. So she's a really good control unit. You can run her both offensively and defensively with like effectiveness and resistance if you're playing defensively, effectiveness and attack and crit damage and stuff if you're running offensively. So she's a really flexible unit overall. Next up we have Ice Krau. Speaking of units that age really well, Krau being one of the base units released into the game, incredibly powerful unit for PvE and PvP. He does still see some PvP use from time to time, although not too much right now because of all the injury running around. But in PvE, he's actually solid in terms of helping with defense buffs. He's helping with provoking, helping protect your team. Just a solid knight in general, and definitely up here. Compared to Yoha, Yoha's more selfish, so I'm putting her in the PvP only, but Krau's in the same boat as Yoha, and in terms of mitigation stuff, but he does provide defense buffs and things to the team, so I'd say he's a little bit more utility for PvE. Next up is Fire Charlotte. Fire Charlotte's a little weird to be here, you'd think, but with her recent buffs, she's actually a really strong unit for damage dealing, for counterattacks and stuff in PvP. People are using her with Monica the Sword of Syria. They're just using her in general because her skill 3 now penetrates defense as well. It's super powerful. And in PvE content, because she does counterattacks and it's AoE damage, and she has good self-sustain as well, yeah, she's gonna be an absolute monster that could just clear through story and stuff relatively easily, and pretty decent at chipping down bosses as well because of her defense penetration on the highest defense unit on the opponent's side. So really good to have on your roster. Same thing with Ravi, self-sustaining, bruisery DPS, really decent damage. In PvP, not used quite as much as she used to be, but still viable if you want to use her. It's kind of weird with the RGBs because ML5s are like mostly geared towards PvP. RGBs are kind of flexible in terms of application, but I put Ravi up here. She does see, you know, quite a bit of use in PvE content. You can use her in PvP, right? Just a decent option in general. Vildred is also going to be here along with Eligos. Vildred is going to be a really strong AoE damage dealer, clear trash mobs and stuff, but in PvP, really good cleave unit. He's a speed imprint as well. Really rare to have a speed imprint. The only other 5-star with a speed imprint is Tactical Archetype Koli, who is currently not available for the Selector. And we also have Eligos, who is a really good debuffer. He has a 100% chance to apply target and defense break, which is huge for PvE content, like clearing hunts and things like that, certain boss stages. But in PvP, also a really good follow-up unit to your cleave teams, right? Cleaning up with his passive ability, setting up with his skill 3 if you have him really fast, and dual attacking with his skill 1 with your highest attack unit. Yeah, this guy's an absolute monster under the right teams and builds. But that is going to be the tier list, guys. Now, when it comes to my top 5 picks from all of these units, what would I recommend that you guys get? The number 1 unit, in my opinion, is going to be Setsuka. So she's going to get bumped up into the top 5 picks here. Super strong to have in general. Will help you in Arena, help you create defense teams in Arena and Guild Wars and such too. And useful in PvE as well, though not as useful as Fene, who's also going to be up here. Fene doesn't see as much PvP use, but in PvE, she is an absolute goddess. Good sustain, good damage, and healing for everybody on the team. Same thing with Rowana, with a revive buff, barriers, healing, and a good passive ability that pushes up your combat readiness and heals you whenever you get hit by counters, extra attacks, or dual attacks. Rowana is an absolute staple in arena teams, can be used across so much content, right? Definitely deserving of a top 5 spot pick. The next unit that's going to be up here is actually, in my opinion, going to be Genoa. He is such a strong DPS unit, and you can use him to clear so much content. He is actually a pretty decent pick in things like RTA if your opponents aren't picking Empyrean Ilinov. Seeing as ML Politis is a really viable meta unit right now, and a lot of people are ban protecting her, Genoa is a really good unit to sneak in 4th or 5th pick for a little surprise damage, especially if you pre-ban Ilinov, so you don't have to worry about defense penetration resistance, right? Pretty solid here. And last but not least, I'm gonna put Celine into the top 5 picks as well. I feel like she is a incredibly powerful unit to have in terms of countering non-attack skill openers, such as, for example, Swift Flagbearer Sigrid, ML Politis, and stuff like that. You can use her in RTA, in PvP. It really depends on your team comps though, and in PvE, she is still a very solid unit to be using across multiple contents, good against certain bosses and such too. So these are my top 5 picks for the RGB selectors. Let me know who your top 5 picks are going to be in the comment section down below, and if this video helped you, then do be sure to leave a like and to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future content updates as well as future tier lists. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.